What is up, YouTube? This is Ebon Magician 34. This is Back to the Beginning, Episode 7. We did some pack busting in Episode 6. Take a look at that if you haven't already. And we did a little bit of trading, but not much because of our pre-release last weekend for Roaring Skies. Now, we did make one trade, like I say. We traded, these aren't them obviously, but pretend these are. We traded our two acro bikes away this past week. But we got some supporters in their place. It was what we had that we could offer because somebody needed acrobikes to get their playset, and so they could hook us up with some nice supporters. So we ended up getting two Sycamore and two Shauna for that, which does not suck. You know, sometimes when you're starting out, you got to make trades like that where you trade away something you'd kind of like to have in order to get what you need. So that's what we ended up doing there, and obviously those cards came out of our deck. Now, the other things we pulled, we got quite a few things that we can use to change our deck from our packs. While there were no EXs in our packs, we did get some pretty interesting things. So, anyway, enough about that. We ended up pulling our Kyogres. I know Kyogre in many ways is sort of the core of the theme deck, but our point here was to build the best deck we could with beginner potential and not necessarily to follow the theme of the theme deck. So I have no problem getting rid of Kyogre mainly because his 2 energy attack, half the time it's going to do nothing at all. So that's not very helpful. And we don't have very much to help us accelerate this 4 energy attack. And for 4 energy, it only deals 80 damage. Yes, it hits all their bench Pokemon for 10 each, but we don't really have a big way to capitalize on that. And so essentially, it's just overcosted, it's too slow, it's not really doing us any good. So unfortunately, even though we busted 2 extra Kyogre out of our 5 packs of Primal Clash this week, sadly and very ironically, this is the week we're going to be cutting our Kyogre from our deck altogether, which just makes me sad in a way. Another cut we ended up making to make some room, because we've got a lot of additions to make this week, is Feebas. We had 3 Feebas and 2 Milotic, and I felt like the Milotic's abilities are still pretty useful, both of them. So we're going to hang on to the Milotics, but we don't really need a 3-2 line especially. We can just run 2 and 2, especially since we still have the Dene around. So cutting 1 Feebas gives us some room. Another card I consider we ended up dropping is Mountain Ring. We have 1 card that hits us with its own recoil, and that's our Whiscash. But ultimately, we have more cards than that want to hit our opponent's bench, so in a lot of ways this card's kind of detrimental. And most of the cards in the deck couldn't care one way or the other. So it's kind of pointless, ultimately, in a lot of ways, and it can be, it can be hurtful to us, so it can just sit in our hand and do nothing. A lot of opponents, they're hitting our bench won't be a big factor, so we're just going to drop it. That's the bottom line. Another card we're going to drop is our Meloetta. Sadly, in a lot of ways, I think Meloetta was kind of in here just to sort of make, justify Hawlucha, so that it wasn't the only fighting type in the deck. And I think that was kind of my own mistake there. Sometimes you really want to kind of make things work, and you want to make it in your head a little bit more like it makes more sense than it kind of does, I guess you might say. But you know what? We can splash Hawlucha all by itself without having to splash something extra to make us feel like it's right. We can very easily splash the one Hawlucha because he only needs 1 fighting energy. So Meloetta right now is going to come out, but we're going to kind of keep this in the back of our mind just because she does only have the 1 fighting requirement, and we do already have Fighting Stadium and Strong Energy, so if we get more fighting support in the future, she might make a more logical inclusion. So we're still going to be thinking about it, but for right now, she's got to go. She just doesn't do enough in return for what we're going to have to invest in her. That said, I don't think we really need 4 fighting energy in the deck anymore because we got 2 Professor's Letter and only 1 Pokemon who needs a fighting, and it only needs 1. So we're going to go ahead and drop that to kind of tighten our deck up, make some room for some supporters and items. And we're also going to drop a Dark Energy because 5 Dark, we really don't. 4 is fine. Even though Darkrai kind of wants 2 Dark Energies, a lot of times he may not necessarily be attacking. And like I say, we've got the letters, we've got more draw power now. And none of the other Pokemon need it. It's basically just for the retreat. But like I say, we can search it, and a lot of our Pokemon just kind of stay in the active slot until our opponent gets rid of them. So that's fine. That's going to be perfectly fine. Like I say, we're increasing our draw power tremendously this week. So all this stuff is gone. And what we're going to be doing is instead, first up, we're going to be adding our 2 more Sycamores. So we got a playset, because drawing 7 is just pretty much staple, and it's amazingly potent. We're also adding these 2 Shaunas. They're pretty easy to get. they draw fairly deeply without getting rid of our 1 and 2 of cards necessarily, which is a nice little bonus, I guess. It's not necessarily why we picked Shauna, but we are going for it. It's what we could pick up, so that's nice. So those are all going in, and that increases our draw power considerably. We did have 8 supporters, and we're actually going to go up to 13 by adding 5. These 4 plus our 1 Professor Birch's observations we broke out of our packs. That's quite nice. It could draw us 4 or 7, and I'm not thrilled by drawing 4, but 7's okay, and beggars can't be choosers. I mean, we're still running Tierno here, so Birch's observations is going to be just fine. Let's not be picky. We're also going to run our 1 dive ball that we broke out of our packs, obviously, because our deck is mostly water Pokemon right now. And so the ability to search any given one is amazing, especially since we can use it to go get evolutions. That's awesome. Nothing wrong with that. We managed to break a Walrein as one of our rares, and that's awesome. We run 3-2-1 with Sphealcelio Walrein, so now we've got a second Walrein to kind of help us ensure that we get to it in our evolution line. That adds consistency. That's awesome. So that guy's coming in. We're also going to run this Whiscash we broke. His Amnesia is a pretty good attack, actually. It can really be useful against all those EXs and whatnot that only have like 1 attack. He can force retreats, or if your opponent has 2 attacks, he may give them the choice of using an inferior attack. He's just really good, and his Rising Lunge is 60, maybe 90 on a coin toss. So, I mean, it's okay for now. It's pretty good for us. And our last addition is going to be this Bouffalant. He deals 40 extra damage against grass types, which is okay since we have a lot of grass weak Pokemon. But more than that, it's just because he's not picky about his energy costs. He can use the double colorless, which is nice. And his attack can pull off special energies. So he can be a nice thing to go get with the Dene for certain matchups. So all in all, he's a nice inclusion, something we can look forward to playing. So anyway, we are going to look at a summary of this deck next week, and where we take a look at all the cards in the deck, because I know it's been kind of confusing in the last few weeks, pulling things out, adding things in. So we're going to take a look at the whole deck very holistically, and we're also going to start talking about the games we've played. We haven't played a whole lot, and we've had a hard time against competitive decks, obviously. But we have actually managed to win a game so far, which I was pretty proud of that, with an earlier version of this deck, so that was kind of a statement. But we're going to talk about all that good stuff next week, so until next time, like, comment, subscribe, check me out on Twitter, the link is below, and I will see you next time with more Pokemon content.